Okay, so welcome back to your course on the cognitive biases, the cognitive tendencies, the heuristics, the cognitive allures is what I like to call them, okay? The fallacies, some people call them cognitive fallacies or logical fallacies, whatever it is that you like to call them. This is your course on those, and today we are talking about that one right there, the urgency bias. Now, what is the urgency bias? So basically the urgency bias is a situation to where somebody in sales or somebody that's trying to promote an idea or somebody that's trying to get you to alter your behavior to go along with whatever they're doing uses urgency, meaning a short, limited amount of time for you to participate in order to have you behave faster or agree faster or buy faster with whatever it is that you're talking about. We've all been there before. We hear these on basically a day-to-day basis. So what does that mean? Well, the urgency bias just basically says to us, we're like, well, we know our time is limited, we know things are limited, we know that especially things that are trendy or good deals and stuff like that only are around for a short amount of time. So we need to quickly take advantage of those because we don't want to miss out, right? The FOMO, the fear of missing out, is deeply tied to the urgency bias. We can get into that a little bit later, but that's basically what the urgency bias says. So let's put an example up there of something that we are all familiar with, we have all had experience with or have seen, and we probably see these like on a day-to-day basis, okay? So let's say you saw an ad on TV, okay? Here's you. This is you right here, all right? You, and you're watching, here's your TV. Here is your TV right here, and you are watching it. All right, we can put up here TV. And what's going on TV? Well, you're watching whatever network it is, as long as they permit ads on them or whatever an ad pops up. If it's regular TV, everyone, for the most part, unless you're pretty young watching this, are familiar with commercials and what those were like. But when you see like a YouTube ad or an ad on any streaming service, especially ones that are free, right? Usually when you pay for them, they take away the ads. But when you see those ads, it's a commercial for something else. And oftentimes, they'll say something like, ooh, act in the next 30 minutes or something. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to discount the price for you, like, I don't know, 50%, 60%. Or we're going to throw in this stuff along with it, which is like a $90 value, all yours free if you just act now. All of that stuff right there. Okay, so let's take a silly example here. Have you guys ever seen these things? There was a commercial. This was actually a joke on the urgency bias, so to speak, on the show Family Guy. If any of you guys are familiar with that, they had a TV commercial come on, and this dude, here is a dude right here. This is a salesperson. Salesman, let's just say put salesman, because that's what he was. And what was he selling? He was selling these things, these little guys, right, that they do this. And they are called, and they have these little arms. Arm here, and like a happy face, right? He was selling this, and let's put a little line here. They're quivering. It's quivering, right? He was like, dude, I am completely right now overstocked on these wacky waving, inflatable, wailing arm tube men, or whatever it is that he called them. I'm not going to write that whole thing out. Just know that that's what this noodle-looking thing is. Here, let's give him some hair and stuff. Anybody has seen these, right? They usually put them outside of car lots, or sometimes they put them outside of stores when the store is running an ad that is urgent. They want to attract people, and those things that are like, ooh, right? And they have, it's like air or something that is blown into them so that they wiggle here. All right, and this salesman, he comes up and he's like, I am currently overstocked on these things, right? And for the next whatever, I don't remember the skit perfectly, but he was like, for the next, I don't know, whatever, I'm offering 80% off of these things. 80% off the wacky waving, inflatable wailing arm tube men. Inflatable, no, it's an I. I started to try to draw inflate. You inflate them with an I. Okay, so, wacky waving inflatable wailing arm tube men. He's like, and he kept saying it over and over, and he's like, dude, I'm overstocked. They're 80% off right now. Act now, because they're not going to be that forever. And it was all exciting, and it was silly. And part of the silliness was that occasionally people will do what is called, they'll like manufacture urgency into their ads. Meaning like, it really wasn't all that urgent for you to buy that thing right then. He was like, dude, right now I'm overstocked on them, as if he wasn't like always overstocked on them. The joke was that nobody wants these things, practically speaking, and that's why he has so many of them, and they gotta sell them at a huge discount because he's got too many, because nobody wants them. I mean, once in a while, like a whole business will buy one, right? Or maybe you'll rent one from another business. There doesn't need to be that many of these, right? Wacky waving inflatable whaling arm tube men aren't like iPhones or something to where like everyone needs one. It's only a very small portion. But with that urgency bias, what he was trying to say is like, hey, but they're 80% off. And if you act soon, in the next 30 minutes or something, so you got 30 minutes, let's put minutes. You got 30 minutes to act on this, and you can get one of these crazy things for 80% off. Now, there are other biases that he's using here, but the main one was the urgency, because if you remember the cartoon, and a lot of you probably remember this specific cartoon, if you don't, just remember the impression I did of him being like, whoa, man, I'm overstocked, and for the next 30 minutes only. You've heard that about something else in your life. All right, he's creating that urgency bias and being like, man, you're going to save 80% only during this time, though. If you don't take action now, you're going to miss out on owning this wonderful piece of equipment that is going to do God knows what for you. Who knows, right? But here's you. You see that kind of ad, and even if you don't want a wacky waving inflatable whaling arm tube man or men, this is what you're thinking. Your brain is like, ooh, urgency. This commercial is all high energy, and he's like, act now, and he's talking quickly, and he's saying only 30 minutes, 80% off. Not that long do you have to take advantage of it. Your brain still responds to it a little bit. It's like, ooh, this is something to pay attention to, because whether or not I'm interested in this, it's not going to be around for long. And of course, as we know, if this sort of sale was kind of going on, it's probably going to be going on for months, right? Or over the course of a few years. I mean, you see this with regular things. You see it with like, oh, we have an arts and crafts set. Like when your kids watch TV or YouTube Kids or something, and they see an ad. I don't think they run ads on the kids' version of that. Or maybe they do. I don't know. But you know what I mean. You've seen ads targeted towards children. And it's usually through children programming. Like, ooh, here's an arts and crafts like set. That's like $40 or something. But then they say, oh, if you order within the next 15 minutes, guess what else we'll give you? Put this in your shopping cart and check out in the next 15 minutes. You will also get... what? You'll get another easel or something. You'll get a whole nother box of crayons. Instead of 64, you'll get the 128 one. You'll get some markers or whatever it is. And they're like, this right here is a $30 value all on its own, completely free. That is urgency bias. All right? And this is what happens. You're probably thinking, oh, that's kind of silly. I mean, it interests my kid, and they get interested, and they come to me and ask for it, and I have to kind of explain to them why we don't get it, or maybe you do get some of those. That's okay. But everybody would understand the urgency that it creates is the, hey, act now because supply is limited, while supplies last, first come, first serve, all of those sorts of phrases. That's urgency bias right there. Now, how do you use this in your actual life, though? Well, your brain knows that, yes, most things, generally speaking, do have an urgency to them. You can only do so much during the day, and so your brain needs to be like, okay, what are the things that I can best involve myself in or put my energy into that are going to give me back the most for as little energy as possible, right? Because your brain likes to conserve energy. That is the whole reason the cognitive biases pretty much exist. Is because when your brain sees the biases or develops them, this is what happens most of the time. It doesn't have to work as hard because it doesn't have to think as much. It's already like kind of pre-programmed with the script, and it's like, okay, when you see this sort of thing, act in this way so that you conserve energy. And that's why the urgency bias works so well on so many things. You can apply it to whatever else that you have seen. Maybe you've been online somewhere and you're checking out, you're putting a bunch of things in your virtual cart and you're about to check out, and they say, hey, if you want to, add this side item, let's say you're buying like, I don't know, like a remote control car for your son or daughter that they, you play with a little remote control thing, and they're like, the batteries aren't included. But if you act this quickly, we'll not only give you batteries, but we will give you 3 packs of batteries, so it won't run out for the whole year or whatever it is. And they're like, but only if you add this now. Once you go to the next page, this last deal and this page is gone forever. All right, and they have a button at the bottom that says something like, no, I don't want to take advantage of this awesome deal. I would like to just buy my own batteries. They say something like cliched like that, that's supposed to give you that guilt. Well, that's actually triggering your urgency bias. There's like, well, man, I'm gonna need some batteries too. That is true, and this is the only time I can act to get this deal. Do you see what I'm saying? Everybody has seen this, either this kind of situation to where somebody comes on and is like, hey, this is only available for so-and-so time, right? That's urgency bias, because your brain thinks that, hey, I'm kind of afraid of missing out on things. I don't want to be left behind. The human being in general is very adaptable. That's why they're the most successful species on Earth, is they're very adaptable. And one of the parts of that adaptability is seeing trends. And the urgency bias, though, can be used against you because it's showing you a thing that seems to be a trend, but you got to get on it early or you're going to lose your advantage with the trend, right? So basically, that is basically the urgency bias. Like I said, you can come up with 1,000 of your own examples of this, but remember, the more that you can use the urgency bias to your advantage, or if you're in business, you can apply it to your own marketing or whatever it is, ethically, you don't want to be selling wacky waving inflatable wailing arm tube men to a bunch of people that don't need them. Okay, that wouldn't be ethical. That's why this was silly. It was silly because nobody needs this, and this salesman on the commercial was acting like, whoa, man, I cannot believe it. It will never happen again. Nobody has bought these, so we are overstocked. This is your opportunity, right? All of those things. So anyways, that has been the urgency bias. Thank you so much for being here for this one, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you.